Hi, and welcome to On the Page. I'm your host, Jen Mulvihill. Our third episode, we have another wonderful, fantastic guest. He is he's an actor, he is a comedian, he's a screenwriter, he's also an author and a show host. Welcome, Scott J. Carroll.
Hello.
There you are. Hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good for a Wednesday. So, how has everything been going for you with the world going crazy?
You know, I feel it's just easier to go crazy along with the world. It just makes things so much easier. Since this whole thing started, it actually gave me a chance to put a few things together and discover new talents that I didn't know I had. I actually started making jewelry. My wife and I worked on a few projects. I got my first book published. I wrote so many things. It was just easier to let the crazy happen, and that little bit of escapism has helped so much with everything else that's been going on.
Yeah, I totally get that, definitely. And you wear a lot of hats, let me tell you.
Well, I have a big head. I need them.
Yeah, I wasn't even sure. And of course, if I don't put the middle initial and I Google your name, you have even more hats. You
Oh, I
have a
know.
PhD and all kinds of things.
There is also, if you Google Scott J. Carroll, currently at the time of recording, my book is towards the top and the other shows, but there's also another Scott J. Carroll who wrote a book about like healing your chakras, which
Yeah,
is
I saw
something
that.
I know nothing about.
That's kind of cool, though.
If you go, I'm waiting for that phone call where it's like, "Hey Scott, we'd like you on our show." Yeah, sure. And then I come up. So tell me about the fifth chakra. Well, it comes after four, but before six.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, speaking of books, let me ask you this.
Yes.
As a child,
Mhm.
what books influenced you the most, or movies, if you were more of a movie goer?
So my mom was a kindergarten teacher, and she taught us to read at a really early age,
Okay.
and I took to reading like water. I read every single thing I could get my hands on. There was this one of the things I remember particularly. There was this book of encyclopedias we had in the attic, and it was all about mythology. And I would go up and I would just take one out at a time, and I would just read different ones about mythologies. Uh, I read I read so much that at Christmas time I always knew which presents were mine because they were the ones shaped like books under the tree.
Oh,
There's actually pictures of me as a kid, and my mom could probably find them. Of it's Christmas, everyone is off having fun, like celebrating, and I'm in the corner, just nose buried in a book.
oh, wow.
And I read everything. By the time I was heading into eighth grade, I was starting a collection of Michael Crichton and Stephen King and just books that everybody was like, "No, you can't read these." And I was like, "Well, now I'm just going to read them harder because you told me I can't." And and I loved them. I just loved the escapism and the stories. And I think I hit it at such a perfect time for storytelling because I also had Spielberg making all of the movies that defined my childhood happening at the same time. So
Yeah.
I'm reading books and I'm watching Indiana Jones, and I'm reading more books and I'm watching Jurassic Park, and I'm reading more books, and then there's Star Wars, and they just kept coming. So I had such this wonderful, rich, story rich environment, and it just fueled my imagination, and I just ran with it.
That's awesome. It's kind of like how my childhood was. I read a lot of books, so I had to wait for the movies a little bit longer.
I remember being so disappointed when because I loved my favorite Michael Crichton book was The Lost World, was the second Jurassic Park book. I
Yes.
borrowed it so much from the library that the librarian was like, "Here, just take it."
Oh,
Um, and I remember being so disappointed when the movie came.
completely different.
Oh, so different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the books are usually better than the movies. There are a few instances I think the movie's better than the books, but we won't mention those.
Yeah, that's a whole nother minefield.
That's a whole nother thing. So how did you get into acting?
I never stopped playing pretend. I think that when I was a kid, I never really had a lot of friends. I was bullied, nerd kid. And in the world of pretend, I could be the hero. I could be the good guy or whatever I wanted to. And as other kids were growing out of it, I wasn't. I just kept playing pretend.
Mm-hmm.
And then the stories just got more elaborate. And as I was doing it, I was like, man, I wish I could get paid for this. And this is going back to like all of these things coming together at once in my childhood. I'm watching movies and I see actors like Rick Moranis on screen. And I think, there's this guy that looks like me. And, this little nerdy guy, but he's funny and people like him. And, watch Ghostbusters and I absolutely loved it. And then I found an old VHS of Little Shop of Horrors and just fell even so much more in love with him. And I thought, if he can be on the screen, then there's no reason that I couldn't. So I started taking every single class that I could find. I remember doing a summer camp, this little terrible acting summer camp, and I loved it so much. I took every course I could find, and I just kept auditioning for things, and they put me in a play. And the first time I told a joke on stage, and it got a laugh, that was it. I was hooked right from there.
That's cool. So that led into comedy then.
Yeah. I realized I thought it would be easier to make an audience laugh than it would to cry. That's wrong. That is not the case. Comedy is, of course, subjective. It's always different. You tell a joke and everyone's going to take it a little differently. But being able to make people laugh is something that we fundamentally need.
Mm-hmm.
We as people, we seek that escapism. We seek, even if it's momentary, we seek relief from all these different pressures that are around us. And I really liked being able to be the one that made people laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Because something that I could do and something that I took to kind of naturally made other people feel good. And part of me really, really liked that. And then the other part of me was like, oh, now they like me more. So I'll keep doing it. But I think comedy is really, really important. Most of the plays I've done, I've always been kind of the comic relief character. I always get kind of typecast in that. And for the most, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with that because it helps me practice just general comedy in life, and being able to see when somebody is upset or sad, and knowing a joke to kind of help take them out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I personally feel that's really, really important. I think that if you can make someone laugh and just forget their troubles for just even a few minutes, then that's completely worth all the effort that you put into it.
I agree. That it's a good feeling.
Oh, it is. It's one of the best.
So, did your acting take you into writing, or was that something that you always wanted to do?
They kind of came hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
I remember really early on in my theater career, when I was starting doing plays, I would read a script and I would look at I was taught by all my teachers, it doesn't matter how many lines you have in the play, you read the entire script. And when I teach acting too, I advocate this, because you might have one or two lines, but they might be the most crucial ones to the plot, and you need the context. So I go through the entire script, and so many lines suffered from what I call people don't talk like that syndrome.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure you know.
Oh yeah.
And And I would go, this just isn't right. So I would go and I would, in my notes, like make the line sound natural. And
Mm-hmm.
I know it's cardinal sin correcting somebody else's work. So I thought, well, I'll just do my own. So as I was studying plays and doing plays and reading these other books on the side, because I had so many friends, I would also write other stories. I wrote my first play when I was 14 years old, and
Wow.
it was awful. It was terrible. But one of the best notes I got on it was that all the dialogue sounded natural, and I worked really, really hard to make sure that whatever I write, unless it's a period piece or something that's set together, doesn't have people don't talk like that syndrome. Because it can completely take you out of something.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like when you're watching a movie and somebody's trying to do an accent that they have no business doing. It completely takes you out of.
Yeah, I get that too. I've seen some shows where the people are supposed to be Southern and living here in the South, and they try to do a Southern accent, and I'm like, obviously they are not from the South.
Well, whenever I go into an audition and they're like, "Can you do a Southern accent?" I'll ask, "Which one? Do you want Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama?" And I've had a couple casting directors just go, "Uh, Southern."
There's a lot of different Southern dialogues, yes, and it's good that you recognize that.
There are, and it's important to know, especially for an audition, if you're going to go in and the movie's taken, because there's a ton of filming happening in outside New Orleans right now.
Mhm.
And if you go in, it's like, okay, this we're filming down here, but this movie takes place in Mississippi. You need to know to have the Mississippi accent. And oh, what was the movie? I think it was Dennis Quaid. Was
Mhm.
He was like a detective, um, solving some crime down in New Orleans. And they've in New Orleans they have that is it a catchphrase? Is it something they say where they go, "Oh, share," just like, "Oh, you little baby, you sweet little thing," and all of the actors in the movie are just going, "Ah, share," and it's just everyone from the areas is like, "Nope, nope, out, I'm
Nope.
done, not watching that now."
Nope, nope, nope. Yeah. Well, and also in it depends on where you're from in
Mhm,
that state too, because there's different areas have a different sound.
mhm.
Um,
That's
the
the
way,
idiolect.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and for people who don't know, um, you've got your dialect, usually kind of confused with accents, but accent and dialect, and your idiolect is a more specific version of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you know, North. I completely lost my thing, but North Place and South Place both have a slightly different accent. Where I grew up in New Jersey, you could tell if somebody was from North Jersey or South Jersey just based on where the inflections were in their sentences.
Yes, definitely. So you have a book. Tell me
you
about your book because I just bought it. I haven't had time to read it yet. So
know,
tell us a little
I appreciate your honesty.
about it.
So my book is called Edge of the Storm, and it's about there is a town essentially that is alive. The land is alive, and it's filled with things that are called remnants. In the time that was before time, there were other things that existed, but once time existed, they no longer could. So little pieces of them got left behind that can have an effect on our world, like a coin that can always tell if somebody's lying. So if they're lying and you flip the coin and it lands tails. If they're talking and you flip the coin, it lands heads. They're telling the truth. The world is full of different little things like that, and there are people who can hear the town. It's not a voice so much as like a feeling. And there are, of course, bad people who want these remnants for themselves. And it's all about a guy who just gets caught up in this. He discovers that his whole life, all these little bits of intuition were the town helping lead him to where he needed to go.
Well, that sounds really interesting. I love that escapism, and I love where you can go into like what another dimension or another time, and um, I love stuff like that. So I'm probably really going to enjoy this.
It was when I wrote it, I had just finished rereading um, a whole bunch of Stephen King and Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett and Douglas Adams, and
My favorite.
all of those different voices were kind of in my head.
Yeah.
And there are definitely scenes where you could tell which is inspired by which type of author. And it's a fun read. It's a pretty quick read. It's not a very long book.
Mhm.
Not to unto my own horn, whatever whatever the word is. Um, but it's fun. It's a good bit of escapism, and I I feel like we really need that escapism right now. And when I when I first published the book, I thought, we need a lot of escapism right now. We need this. So this was the, pandemic had been going on, lockdown had been going on, all the days had blended completely together. So I went online. Fit yes, publish, do make the book. And I went on that day, went on every platform I had, and said, "Guys, my book's out," and it got 0 hits. And I was like, "That's so weird. Why is nobody today looking at it?" And then I went back, and you can actually see this on Amazon. If you look at the publish date, it's September 11th,
Oh,
which
oopsie.
the lesson is look at a calendar.
Yes, definitely. Lesson learned. Well, speaking of writing, and
Mm.
I'm sure you've learned this in acting too, but when did you find that words had power, like a superpower?
When I so as a kid, I was bullied, and
Mhm.
I think that for a lot of actors, that we all kind of share uh, what I call a similar past trauma. All of us, in some way, shape, or form, um, had a childhood that something or someone did things to kind of hurt us in ways. And the words that a lot of these people used, they definitely hurt me. But I think that the thing that definitively marked it for me was I had a I was dressing up for Halloween, and my parents were helping me out with a costume. And we they I was dressing up like a farmer, and they stuffed a pillow down the front. And I'm a little kid, and without thinking, I turn and go. Uh, I turn to my mom, and I go, because she was a little overweight at that point, and I go, well, now I look just like you. And I didn't know how
Mm.
much that hurt her until it was years later, um, when I was a stupid teenager doing stupid teenager things and having a fight, having an argument with her, and she brought that back up,
Oh,
and
wow.
I didn't like that moment right there was when it sunk in that, oh, I said something terrible, and not only did it hurt her that she remembered it these years, like it hurt her that badly that
And
she
she,
remembered it all these years later.
oh, wow.
And I still to this day feel so bad about it. And the lesson I took from that was I always try to really think about something before I say it to someone.
Hmm.
And I still, mom, if you're watching, I'm so sorry. That was um but when it turned to as it turned to writing to stories, I realized that you could. I wanted to try to be able to capture the feeling of when you're reading a book and you're so into it that the world disappears, that you're
Hmm.
taken to a completely different place, and it's just ink on a page, but it moves you to somewhere else completely. And I've always wanted to be able to do that with just words. Just put a string of things together that someone can read, and for a little bit, they're just gone off to somewhere else. And it's it's kind of disjointing, but it's also one of the greatest feelings in the world
Oh yeah.
when you look up from a book and 6 hours have passed and you're like, oh crap, I gotta go to bed.
Yeah. So, were there any scenes that you found difficult to write or any challenges in your acting career that were difficult?
There's there's always going to be um, with writing. There's a scene in the book in Edge of the Storm where after I wrote it, I actually had to put the pen down and step away for a second because I did something terrible in the book, and
Um,
I had to stop and go, "Oh, I did that." Because you when you're writing and as I'm sure you know, there are a lot
mhm.
of times that the characters take over and you're just kind of their custodian. You're just writing down, oh, okay, they decided this, cool, so I'm going to write that down. um, a scene happened and I had been following the characters and a decision needed to be made and I made it instead of the character making it, and it worked really well for the story and character, but it was just such a terrible event that I had to stop and go, I'm going to walk away for a minute. But as it pertains to acting, I still think that comedy is incredibly difficult to do. Um, you it goes back um, to vaudeville even. In vaudeville, the which fun random fact, the straight man got paid more than the funny man because the straight man had to keep everything going.
Yeah.
But comedy is always changing and it's always evolving, and people in different places will find different things funny, which is why for the show, for when I do screenwriting, for under review, the comedy that we do, I kind of rely on my team because I might look at something and go, this is going to be a funny joke, and then I'll present it and they'll go, no, that's not funny, that's bad. And we'll go, oh, and then we'll we'll workshop it and we'll make it work. But it is one of the hardest art forms to do, and for people who do consistent comedy and they do consistent comedy well, it
Mhm.
is something incredible to watch. Um, but difficulties with acting itself, I always have a hard time yelling at my friends. I know it sounds like the stupidest thing, but if I'm doing a scene with one of my friends in it or somebody I know, and I have to be mad and yell at them, I'm always cracking a smile in the corner of my mouth because I'll be thinking of a joke or something we had beforehand. And it's always that I don't know why that's the most difficult thing. It's
Hmm.
not crying, it's not like being sad, it's not thinking about something else. It's just yelling at my friend.
Yelling at your friends. Well, in writing, um, yeah, I know you don't have that right now, but what would be your ideal writing space?
Oh my god. Okay. Okay.
I'm
Are you ready?
ready.
We're going on a little bit of a journey.
Okay.
Um, it is a large room. There are thick oak shelves lining every wall. Uh, on the walls are brass sconces with lights in them. The floor has a deep green carpet with a burgundy fringe going around. There are leather chairs with small tables and small Art Deco lamps on them all around the room. And on the far corner, underneath a very large window, there is a thick oak desk with a chair that swivels. It's very important that the chair swivels, but a big back chair that you can lean back just far enough before it feels like you're going to fall. And you could just pick any book and just stay in there for hours.
That sounds like the ideal space to me. I think I've seen a couple of libraries like that actually, because I like to tour libraries. So,
Oh, they're beautiful.
oh gosh, yeah.
They're beautiful. I love them.
Yeah. Oh, and the smell of the books. Oh,
Oh, there's nothing like it.
Oh,
You can buy candles and perfume that have that
mhm.
smell, and I want
Yes.
them. I want
Yes.
them so bad.
So, tell me, what is Nichols Players? Am I saying that right?
So the Nichols Players,
Nichols Players.
there is a small college um, called Nichols University, and they unfortunately do not have a theater department.
Oh,
And I happen to be friends with the person who runs the theater, and there were a few times that they had to do bigger plays, some Shakespeare plays and The Crucible, and she asked me to come not just to be in the plays, but to also help kind of teach some of these college students some technique, some theater technique, and it's incredibly unfortunate that the school does not have uh, a better funded arts program because there's
mhm.
so many students there and so many professors there that have so much heart and talent and skill, and for them not to have the opportunity or not to have the chance is
Right.
it's tragic. So whenever she calls me and she says, "Hey, we've got a play going on," I do what I can to try to get down there and help out, and it's some of the most fun I've had on stage, honestly.
Well, that's really nice of you. That's really cool that you do that. So, I have one last question before we wrap things up.
Ooh, yes.
And that is, I'm going to set you up real quick.
Okay.
So, you're in a storm or a pandemic or something of that nature. I don't know where that would happen. And you have three things that you want to choose that, I mean, you already have all your food and everything that you need, but what are the three comfort things that you would want to have?
Oh, that one's easy. That one's actually easy. A fresh pack of pens, a fresh pack of Moleskine notebooks, and a music player that is full of nothing but instrumental and soundtrack music.
Oh, that's awesome. That is really cool. That's very close to mine. So tell us, Scott, where can we find you and all your work?
Right now, you can see a big compilation of everything we have on Facebook, which is facebook.com/Scott and Eris, where my partner Eris Walsh and I have put together comics and videos. We are currently on a break right now, a season break of our show Under Review, which is it's a mix of mystery science theater and aperture science. It's our love letter to the things that got us kind of into comedy and making fun
Aw.
of the world in general. You can find my book, Edge of the Storm, on Amazon.com. It has both paperback and Kindle, so you have all the options of battery powered or not.
Awesome.
And usually, if you're in your town and you see some crazy person walking around, that's probably me.
And you're also on Geeky Side TV. Is that
I am also on Geeky Side TV. I will be hosting their Entertainment Spotlight for Geeky Side.
that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It was super fun
Well, thanks so
talking
much
with
for having
you.
me.
And I look forward. I'm sure there was stuff that we could have touched on that we didn't get to, so maybe next time. So
Anytime.
until then, everyone, keep reading, keep writing, and we can change the world one story at a time on the page. Thank you and good night.